Hello, everybody, and welcome to your Tuesday lighting critique. I'm excited today because we have a new student. We have Kat joining us for the first time. So Kat kind of embodies one of the main reasons why I really loved and I really enjoy the Academy of Animated Art and what Jasmine and I have built here. So for the weeks leading up to this point, Kat was telling us, we were emailing back and forth, and she was very excited and just saying, like, October 20th is going to be my day. It's the day I'm going to sign up and I'm going to get going. And we were just able to answer questions for her. And it was just like this nice build up, like almost like a countdown to the day of her first day. So we're very excited to have her here. And it's just like, we just love that we have this program that people connect to and get excited about, because we know that we're excited about it. Because again, this is all being built on what Jasmine and I wish we had when we were first getting started in this industry. And so we're just so thrilled that we're able to provide you guys with courses of value and critiques that matter and all that good stuff. So with that in mind, I want to get started with a couple of Kat's projects that we've been emailing back and forth about a little bit. So it's Baby Yoda in his little pod. And one of the things that we were looking at is I wanted to look at some reference of what, and Kat did a great job with this, of finding some reference of Yoda being lit by like a glowy element that isn't necessarily in his normal skin tone, because Yoda is green, right? The same way that Shrek is green. So what we want is we want him to be illuminated by something that's in this case it's totally opposite of his green color, because like if you look, we have to kind of lose his green color in order to get this. So I kind of wanted to see what we're seeing here, which is, and what this is kind of revealing to me, is that this glow is really happening more in the specular values than it is in the diffuse values. And what I mean by that is it's not like his skin tone here is changing away from green to more blue, but it's more happening in the specular highlights. And now as we go away from this light source, as we get up into here, we're seeing, like especially in his ear, we're able to identify that hero green color while only getting some of those blue values in the specular area. So going back to these examples, I think we can keep more of the green diffuse value and then just getting this magenta to kind of hit in the specular value. Because again, like if you look, this green and magenta will combine into like a gray value, which takes it off his hero color, which right around the source, like right around in here would be fine. But like once we get up over here, we don't want too much of that. So looking at these projects, what we're creating here is, there's not a lot of background back here. So it's going to be light over dark. So the biggest thing I want you to focus on is getting, let's get more light on the interior of this. Right now, this is probably the brightest part of the image, but we really want to just make that, you see how this is like subtle up here? Like just make it subtle shaping so we can read the sphere. And then like really play up that there's the light is being exposed around here. So now, as opposed to like the helmet getting lit from this side, make it all about this light. In fact, let's go ahead for this next iteration, turn off all the other lights. Let's just focus on getting this light really churning out and creating good shaping in this interior space. And then we'll build from there. In this iteration, it's a similar thing. So I think that we should do the opposite here, which is you're trying to go for like a little bit of a light over dark. Let's turn off everything inside the pod. We'll get that going more, but I think we need to work on the structure a little bit, which is basically a light coming in, like a really broad light source coming in from behind that's creating this, and then casting more of a shadow on the ground, and really taking off like this is a little bit distracting and making it feel like there's a spotlight shining on it here. And this is probably just a reflection, but let's make sure that that's true. So what I would do is turn off all the other lights and just put like a big area light back here. And start with that as the light source and see where that leads us. Also, if you could go ahead and smooth this shape of this, because you're just seeing like these faceted edges and it just makes it feel a little bit wonky. So I would start there, and then we can work on building that up. It's also like in both of these shots, there's almost like an interior light inside the helmet. So we'll have to keep our eye on that. But let's start with something simple, and then we will build from there. All right, so from there, let's go back and we'll do these alphabetically. So Dani, we've got a couple submissions from you. We've got your, we've got 3, I believe. We've got your Poker Puss, the church that you're working on, and the spooky outdoor scene. Okay, so for this one, I think that this is looking better back over here. I think the shadow feels a little artificial to me. It almost feels like if it's this bright, like there would almost be no shadow. So that almost feels like it's being added on top. So I would maybe tone that down, especially right around the base of the feet. It's okay that if it exists out here, but like right around the base of the feet, it feels like it would just kind of get washed out by the brightness. I would try and add a little, like a touch more edge blur on this guy, and just like make a little bit more light wrap around him. And then just like what, yeah, because overall, just like one more iteration of haze kind of coming up on him. I think just like lift it a little bit more would really be beneficial. Love this light bouncing up here and creating this fall off as we come up here. I think that's looking really nice. I think this shape is looking really nice. There's a hard line here. Just watch out for that one. And then the more I look at this, the more I think that we should really play up, you've got this nice light on top of his head here. On his face, I would really like to play up the underlighting up here. So let's pretend like the visor's completely cut off the overhead light. Try and position like an area light here or something and just bounce it up underneath him. So, because I'd like to use this as motivation for really kind of create some, not like spooky lighting on him, just underlighting on him to make it seem a little bit more nefarious. You know what I mean? Just like maybe this is some kind of illegal poker match. I love the spotlights you're getting around here. Again, I think those are great. And then on the table itself, I feel like we're losing some of the shadows from the poker chips. Like they feel like they're floating a little bit. So just watch out for that. And then from this light source, the glow is good, but I can still see some fastening around the edge here. So it would just require a little bit more edge blur. And then maybe just pulling it down just a little bit so it's a little bit more directional, where right now the haze kind of feels universal. So just pulling that down slightly will be a good next step for that. For the church, starting to come together, I think we are missing some darker points in the foreground. So we want like more darks in there and then building it up as we go back into space. Let me see if I can just simulate that real quick. Do this. Okay, just add some more dark values in here. Something like that in the foreground. And then we'll just kind of paint this in. That last part. But just something more along this line where it's like, these darker elements are more in the foreground and we build up as we go back. It would also be nice, let's actually, if the haze kind of was more localized to this side of the room, so it's like heavy, and then like a little bit lighter than like almost not at all as we go across the room. So it kind of fades as we go from right to left. This warm light kind of coming in here is a cool idea. I think that could work. Yeah, let's stick with that. And then from here, the other big thing is just like, you've got a lot of primary light. The next step would be with this much light coming in and some of the references that I was finding, it would be really beneficial to really get really play up the bounce light, because this light is just going to ricochet around the space and kind of start to glow it up. Like this light would bounce off of that in all directions and glow up. So let's do that as our next step. Create some darker values in the foreground by pulling off the fog nearer to the camera, and then start playing up with the secondary bounce light and see where we go from there. But I think that'll be a really good one. I love, like, these spotlights are looking a lot more spotlighty, which is a lot of fun. The light on, it's interesting because like this is definitely like green matches the lighting here. The magenta and the character itself is much bluer than the magenta light. So, and it's like so hardly hitting it. Hitting it so hardly that I would expect that the hero color of that character to go a little bit more magenta and to match pretty much exactly that color. Also surprised we're not seeing the shadow from the character down there. Just something to be aware of there. This light is interesting in that it's cutting off right below the eyes, which could be kind of fun. So I think you could play up the eye glow a little bit more. And then this bounce light in here is feeling a little bit neutral. It would be nice if it also matched that green value. So like this whole area was kind of like that, just like green light, just boo, 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 boo. And same thing with here. If there's a little bit, like you can see it a little bit here, but just kind of like an overall magenta haze that you can add in the comp or something, I think would work really well. And then make sure that this light is sculpting the face well. The way that this one is pulling the face into darkness, and actually I would take it off of the chin and allow like the whole head to go into darkness, but then like really play up the eyes as the glowy part, and then take down the key hit values on the, because again, you want, it's fine if the face is going into dark and then the eyes get brought up, but you want the eyes to be brighter than the light that's hitting the body. I think that this value is fine for now. It's just we wanted to see some of it on the face too. I also think you can get away with softening this edge just a little bit. It's a little bit of a perfect edge, and maybe not out this far, maybe like out to here. And then we go from there. And then, and then also see if we can find a way to get some reflections in here. And I think that will help. Also, last one. If you can up the ray depth, so we can see this light in their refraction of the light bulbs. If that's how you want to play that up, I think that would be cool. All right, Jordan. Yes, sorry about grabbing the wrong image yesterday. I think we got the right one now. Very cool. This warm light's looking really well. There's a lot of noise back in here. Like there's some like these little magenta dots. Just something to be aware of there. You might want to look into. It could potentially be a light penetrating geometry because that can cause that sometimes. So just be on the lookout for that. This plant back here is looking a little glassy in its reflections. I would tone down the specular highlights on them and kind of rough them up a little bit. And then I think that'll look a lot better there. Displacement is looking great on the ground. I would just take the value down by like half. It's digging a little bit deeply into there. And then the rest of it's looking pretty good. Like the highlights that you're getting on these bars, it would be great if they were a little bit warmer. Like I feel like it's coming in from this. So it'd be nice to get those warm highlights on there. And everything else is looking pretty good. So I would say give that a go, and let's take a look at the next iteration. Keven. All right. So I like that you took out the warm light there. Very cool. The dome light on him is looking pretty good. I think you can wrap it around so it's not quite wrapped around so much on him. It's a little bit more rimmy. I think that'll look pretty good. But overall, I think that's pretty fun. I think that the other thing that you want to work on, especially on these windows, is we see the light hitting the edge, and I think that looks great, but we need to feel like there's light inside of it. Like the inside feels dark. You know what I mean? Like there's these planks here and here, but this area in the middle is seeing into the room. And if inside of the room is drawing that much light, the inside would be bright too. So I would make the inside brighter there. These all look good. I would make that one cool to match all of these. So like all of that is cool. The character isn't reading as like it's the last, like I look at 6 other things or so before I get to the character. Like I look at the house, I look at the moon, I find this, I find the rims over here. And then I'm like, oh, look at that. And there's a few reasons for it. One is this branch is cutting across the character, so we're not reading the full silhouette. So I would maybe consider removing that branch. 2, this light is just kind of flattening the character in the areas that we're seeing it and not reaching the other areas. So it would be a matter of like figuring out a way to get some more shaping and some more contrast on there. And the biggest one is just that the light values are focused elsewhere in the image, and we're not really focus in on the character. So depending on how much of that matters in the story, I would watch out for that. And lastly, I want you to look at this and make sure that something wacky isn't going on here. Do you see how these are being hit by the purpley lights? I'm not seeing the influence on the ground surrounding it. So make sure there's not like a weird light linking thing, but it'd be cool if there's a little bit more purple spill onto the ground there. Okay, so now we have Perle. This is there's some good bones here for this character lighting example. I really like the softness of the ground over here. I do think we get a little brighter around the character herself. You're going to struggle with this model just because there's a lot of like and this happens a lot with when you get a build, is that unless the skin is like smooth, you're going to get a lot of weird shadows. And like, do you see how there's kind of like rippling in the hair, like right here, right here? Like there's just kind of like some fits and starts of like, what you want out of a character is more of like a gradual roll off and not quite as many light and shadow areas. So you want this to be more of like a smooth transition. So I would, from the modeling standpoint, I would consider perhaps going in there and smoothing out the geo a little bit, just so it's like a little softer, because you're gonna have problems with that. In terms of the light position, it's feeling pretty good. I just feel like we need a lot more specularity on the skin. I would make the hair darker because right now it's very similar to the skin tone. And then I would allow this fill value to get a little bit darker and a little bit cooler, because right now it's a little lifted and it's a little just kind of grayed out, like we're just missing saturation. So I would either go warmer or cooler with that, and then I would get a little bit of a rim light going on this side of the character as well. Yeah, I think that would be a really good start. But so specularity, rim light, brighter ground. Try and smooth out that skin if you can, and then also pull, like on this arm here especially. There's the saturation is a little high on the skin. I would just pull that back a little bit. Yeah, and I think that will be good for the next step. And for your Mr. Bean, so one of the things is that wait, make sure I didn't miss anything here. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things you mentioned, the sampling, there's a sample setting in the lights as well as in the global render settings. So if you're noticing that you're getting some noise based on just one light, you want to increase the light. If it's kind of happening globally across the entire scene, you want to increase the general render settings too. One thing I wanted to point out, so if you just kind of click back and forth between your two versions, I want you to look just up under the eye here. You can see, and as well as the hair, like you can see the color shift. So I'm guessing that this is probably in your render. So this is a good example of how adding this image into your render can create some warmer light and some additional bounce light in there. And so there's just like more warmth in it. It's not an optical illusion. Like look at his ear too, and screen left here. You can see there's just more getting filled in there. So it's important. This is a good example of why it's important to have a representation of the background plate in your render, so that you can get those secondary effects in there. Other things about this character, this light is overall feeling a little bit saturated, so you want to pull down the saturation on that. His eyes are always a little goofy. Like, do you see how bright this is getting, but then we're not seeing it in the iris? I would just take down, and like this eye wouldn't, an ideal eye white wouldn't get this bright and this warm, and it also wouldn't get this dark. It would be less of a contrast. You also eventually want to throw in some eye dings in there. And then you want to find more specularity across the hair. And shirt and chest look pretty good for now. Let's start with that. Let's hit those notes for the time being, and then perhaps getting just a touch of rim kind of kick light. So allowing like this area to go into the darker realm, and then like a little bit of kick light. You may want to soften this light a little bit too. I'm realizing the shadows now are a little bit harsh, and because if you think about it as being like a broad window light over here, it would just be kind of it would create some softer light shadow position. I'm sorry, some softer shadows in that. And then in terms of your creepy scene, I think this is looking really great. It's a big improvement over the last iteration, which is I think the headlight's looking a lot better. I like the position of the car, and I actually think you could take it further by pushing the car back this way a little bit more. It's nice as like a framing element, because I think what could happen is now if we pull it back here, we can have the brightness be like in here, and then it'll fade off before we get to the character. And then we can create either some light value behind the character and allow her silhouette to pop out there. Watch out for these specular highlights on these lights. I think that those can probably come down to keep our focus here and not drifting up over there. And then, yeah, I think we can go... I think maybe we can go brighter with the headlight around here. Just more light into this region specifically and allow the character's dark shape to pop out there. I think that'll work really well. And maybe just a touch of like warm light that's kind of rattling around the scene on the trees a little bit and maybe around here too. Yeah, because we want to kind of see the hot spot on the ground. We want to see the spot where the headlight's hitting on this on the house. Now that everything's kind of darkened down a little bit, I think that'll help out a lot. But really great progress, and I think that'll be a really nice step for the next iteration. Shane. All right, very cool. I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but let's go ahead and throw the background a little bit out of focus, just because we're pretty close to this character, and I think we can get away with it. I know we can get away with it. I know it's not exactly what's in the reference, but I think it could help us out a lot. Just like a few pixel blur back there. I still think we can soften this shadow just a touch. But I think the background, like you're definitely getting that brightness back there. It's fading off. Either way, I think that color looks good. That value looks good. Let's just see what it looks like if we add a little bit of depth of field to it. In terms of the character himself, I feel like this is a tricky thing that we're dealing with. If the background's getting this bright from this source, like his face should go a little bit brighter to at least match that value. So, in that case, it might be a matter of toning this down 15% and then bringing this up 15% to get them to match, especially like in the shirt here, because these areas are actually a little bit closer to this than his face. So make everything in this region a little bit brighter and connected to this. And then I think you can tone down the saturation on that light there. Let's neutralize it down just a little bit. And then you can also, if it's possible to wrap it, I'm just trying to think, we need more variation in the values there. You can either wrap the warm light around there more or just allow this region of him to go darker. Actually, all this down here, just to kind of fade down more as we go down, especially on this arm too. So let's do that. Let's just like keep this darker a little bit down there. And then same thing in the background. If you can make this, all this stuff down here just a little bit darker, let's fade it down so we can really keep the focus in the center area. And I think that'll be really good. Last up, we have Tyler. So dude, look at this. From the first iteration to this iteration, such a massive difference. So cool to see the progress on this. I love what you've done to the background. I think you can even push it a little bit darker. I think you can even push it just a little bit darker than what we're seeing here. Now that I'm seeing how successful that is, just like a little bit more, like maybe like a quarter of a stop more. I would take down the caustics on the side here. I think that they're really cool. But I think that, again, just focusing everything in on here would be really great. I believe that you can take down the overall value of the top of the table just to create some more darker values here in the foreground. And then if there's any way to soften the contact point, especially this one here, between Poker Puss and the water, or maybe like it just needs to be smudged a little bit so it looks like they're emerging from the water and there's some interaction, because right now it feels like a hard edged line. So just like a little, like maybe you can do this in Nuke or something, just like a little bit of buildup around the edge of the water, or just like more of a, like even just like a little bit of blurriness there to create a better transition for the character. But I think the face is looking really good. This light here might be like here and here might be going a little bit extreme in their values. It looks a little bit burnt out. And then same thing with the cards. I think the cards can come down like a touch more because they're looking a little bit burnt too. But again, such a great job updating this from the original. It's just so cool to see. So that's it for today. Thank you guys again for submitting everything. It's incredible. And once again, welcome to Kat and all the other new students that we have. You guys are the reason why we do this and the reason why we love it so much. And I can't tell you how excited we are to have you. So enjoy your day and happy lighting, everybody.